Hey guys, thank you to the team for joining me today for this important discussion, and to all of our viewers for taking time to participate with us as we film our first discussion here on the community service platform aimed at collaborative problem solving. Before we dive in, I want to quickly introduce today's panelists and our special guests. From our team, we have our advisory board member, Joe Davila, and I'm Danielle Busko, founder and creator. Our expert today is Asher J. Asher is a National Geographic Explorer turned tech entrepreneur, championing stakeholder accountability and radical transparency. Her interdisciplinary efforts inspire citizen action for brands like Prada and NGOs like World Wildlife Foundation, driving impactful CSR initiatives and promoting sustainability. Guided by biomimetic systems, Asher urges individuals and organizations alike to emulate nature to shape meaningful change. And if you ever get a chance to read any of her articles detailing out her model of how businesses should model nature, I strongly encourage you to do so. I have read many of her blogs, and I think it's really fascinating. We'll make sure that her links are down below. And Asher, thank you so very much for sharing your expertise with us today.
I'm so glad to be here.
With the timing of the release of our beta and me living in the middle of Los Angeles, it was on all of our hearts to pivot from some of the other topics that we planned to start with in order to swarm around the city of Los Angeles as our initial test case. We do still intend to shepherd conversations on some of the other issues that are plaguing the U.S. Right now, as this platform is meant to focus on humanitarian crises that the users deem most urgent. So it's important to us to get user input on what those issues are, and also to understand what should be the focus of season 1. Along the way, hopefully, we will do some amazing collaborative problem solving on the initial issues that we bring to the table. But for right now, we do want to turn our focus to this cataclysmic devastation that is really ravaging Los Angeles right now. As I've been watching the coverage on the news, one of the areas that has really spoken to me and aligns very much with our mission and goals is around the current call to action that many people feel in their hearts right now to help. And as I've listened to the news and even have personally witnessed, like when I have gone to some of the donation centers, folks have been turned away from offering donations. And many places are saying, we only need cash donation. I completely understand that certain centers may be like full on clothing or pet goods, or that like some donors may not be bringing in like clean or quality items. And that certainly, makes it difficult for like the volunteer staff at like such a critical time, because then they have to sort through all of these things and weed it out. Or like in the instance of food donations, there are corporate volunteers that are prepared to help in disasters, and they ensure that they're providing food that meets dietary restrictions. However, I'm also concerned about organizations saying they only need money. Somewhere at the end of that request is a need for something. And every person who wants to help should be able to help. Not everyone has even like 50 cents to give. So being able to help those in need at a time like this helps people in their grief. It helps people feel less helpless. And disasters have a way of making us all feel incredibly helpless. People are incredibly great at self-organizing. And if these organizations could state what their actual needs are and allow volunteers to come together, people with tech skills or event planning skills or donor organization skills, whatever, can come together and help accelerate them actually getting whatever those items are that they need, whether it's physical or otherwise. There's also a lot of individuals and organizations that are offering services that are not getting media coverage. So people don't know that those things are available to them to connect. We'd love for our pilot program to offer a space within our site where we basically say, here's all of our different services, and identify someone to help oversee all of this. What needs have been covered, what's still needed. Here's where you can go for like spiritual needs or food or mental health, like if you need a car, etc. And here's a list of the things that still haven't been covered by anyone. Here's how you get involved or volunteer, local or remote, whether you have skills, good, money, space to give, etc. This way we could bring all the services together, cut down on duplication of services and duplicate funding so that people know, like, if there's everybody, for instance, is focusing on like food and there's a deficit on some other area, make sure that needs are most effectively being met as quickly as possible. This is what I think is so effective about the crowdsourcing at large scale. I think it's a perfect test case for this, and it allows for complete transparency and can support swift action. So I'd love for like all of you to weigh in on this model and how to best utilize volunteers in this situation.
Whenever things like this have transpired, where there's been an external event that's larger than one person's control being exerted over that situation to get it back to the norm occurring, it's impossible to really disclose to another human being how displaced you feel, whether it's power going out for days on end and not having water. Like I couldn't even get into my own house. And that was because of a storm, and we had that in Seattle. And for a whole 10 days, like my life wasn't my life. I was living in somebody else's couch, waiting for someone else's kindness to help me get through that entire period. And so when you start relying on others and sort of the handouts of strangers to help you tide through a context where you feel like you don't have a sense of home, it's really hard to not feel like sort of an emotional discombobulation, and that prevents you from being cohesive, right? So in terms of asking for help, you're not thinking, oh, this is the only thing I need. You just already feel so unsettled. So I think from the perspective of when something is unfolding, the people who are experiencing it, who are living through it, I don't know if there's a way to get them to be able to disclose, hey, this is what my needs are, because they might not even be able to get a handle on it, because I couldn't even charge my phone. I didn't have my computer, like everything was dying on me. And then I had to find a way to drive my car to places to like charge it along the way. It's just like small things that you take for granted because you have the grid, because things are working the way they should. But when systems starts to fail all around you, it's very hard to be plugged in, to be accessible. So you're taking a lot for granted that a natural disaster can put at stake, and you don't realize the scale at which it can occur until it transpires. I think that's going to be the greatest wake-up call that climate change is going to present us with, is this disconnect that we are happy not reconciling when everything goes according to plan. But the minute things start to fall apart, it becomes impossible to not acknowledge that chasm. And then you don't know where you are, right? You're completely disoriented. And also in terms of like what in the scale of the disaster, like the LA fires are so much worse, because I know several people who have lost their homes completely, have lost everything that they own, and their sense of context in this world. Like, you feel secure, you feel safe, you feel like you have a roof above your head, you've been paying mortgage towards it, you think your life is going one way, and the next day that is completely taken away from you. It's very hard to step into that and be like, here's a way in which we can organize, people to funnel into your context and enrich you in the way that you need. I don't think we're going to have a way to make that more streamlined. What I do think needs to occur is a way to understand that the scale of these disasters are only going to get worse as we go further down this timeline, because we've shot past 1.5. We are going to shoot past 2. None of the policies we have in place are going to keep us within the limits that science has asked for, which means there's no way to predict going forward. We've gone past the tipping points by which we can calibrate and model how bad a crisis is going to be. So without having that sort of awareness of being able to insulate ourselves and say, this is where things are going to fall apart, this is what we can expect, we are going to be blindsided. And I don't think we like being blindsided. We don't like being out of control. We don't like things falling apart on us, but that's literally what's going to happen. So I think the best way for people to show up for one another is by being available, by being present, which I guess is, if we're not doing it through being in nature, being in the wild, and embracing life as it's unfolding, and we're going to try and escape through virtual reality and through being in a parallel tangent from existence, then we're going to be grounded in reality through catastrophic events because we have not been paying attention to what actually matters. And I think that's where we are. So we're going to be forced to be present for each other in ways that we've never extended ourselves before, because for the past several decades, we've been going exponentially in the direction of being dissociated from one another and also from the context that we belong to. And I think it's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing for things to fall apart, because it's a good wake-up call for us to show up in a way that actually matters. And I think the things that really matter is someone just showing up at your door and being like, okay, you're not able to get into your house, let me take you somewhere. Or you don't have gas in your car, let me drive you somewhere. It's just small kindness. It's like small gestures that is physically present, right? It's not something that zooms in from somewhere and is coming from the ether or coming from some sort of organization, because it is chaos. And in the chaos, you need people showing up in real time in your immediate context, which sometimes you may not even have access to, because people didn't even know the areas that were off grid completely, that weren't getting water or anything. Many people didn't even know which houses were that off, in certain regions that were completely off grid, and were quite removed with older family members needing hospital care and things like that, and being kind of disenfranchised in those moments. So I think the scale of need is going to be diversified. We're just going to have to be a lot more elastic in the ways we're making resources available. We're going to have to be a lot more mindful in how we purvey those resources. It has to be more decentralized. It has to be more localized. It has to be more present.
What I envision for, I guess, with the premise that I think we're by our nature bound to community. We're bound to wanting to help one another in any way we can. And we live in a world where sometimes you feel helpless because you know what's going on in that geography, but you don't know how to best help. You don't know what gifts or talents or materials, supplies, food, whatever, resources you can give to help. But I envision a platform like the community service platform that enables people to have a medium and a place to pool that information. Not everybody, not any one person knows everything, but individually we can aggregate, we can pool that information so that we can start to have a place where people know they can go to get accurate information on what's actually needed. And in that list, what are some of the criteria or the parameters of what is good and what's not useful? Information about what parts of that geography are offline, what parts are in most desperate need. Young people to older people, having a place to come where they can see, I can add comments on hacks, life hacks, resources I know of, places to go to that are safe, ways to communicate, places to put any information that would be helpful that gives the most up-to-date knowledge that's needed in that time of crisis, knowing that there will be people who may not have access to that. But sometimes those affected people do have some connection to the outside world, and the outside world may be able to see what's in that. So that's kind of one of the things that I envision, that barring a cataclysmic event.
But there were two pieces of what Asher said that stood out to me. One was about nature kind of saying to us, if you aren't all going to learn how to and I'm paraphrasing and not doing it as gracefully as she did, but if you're all not going to learn how to work together and take care of one another, we're going to put you in kind of the circumstances. We're going to, nature's going to create the circumstances. And I always do think that that's very interesting about how nature, creates events and circumstances for us to respond to as needed. And I think the other thing is, early on when she was talking about how people don't know what they need, when they're in that when they're in the situation, and they're just so without, like, they don't know what they need until they're like right in the moment of like, oh wow, I don't have this, or I don't have this, or I whatever those things are. And I think that that's another huge gap that a platform like this can really fill, because as you're like, oh, I don't have this, you could go to the platform and be like, is somebody offering this? Or if everybody knew that there was a community service platform that helps in situations like this, and you can just go to that one spot where it's like pulling in all the things, all the services and stuff, then people can be like, is somebody offering this? Or if not, can I just be like, hey, like cell service, or like, gas, or like, how do I don't know what to do. Like, just like I don't know what to do. Like, I'm stuck, like type of thing, like just an SOS, right? Like, flag it up. And other people will be like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm going to need that too in my recovery. So I that like really stood out to me, like the whole like, there's all the things that are going to come up with these fires people haven't even thought of yet, right? Like that is coming.
And that's where I see a platform like this, where there will be a time 3 weeks from now, 3 months from now, where the aftermath is still happening. And the benefit of the knowledge of other people in this world who've been through a catastrophic fire, an earthquake, a hurricane, where they've been rebuilding. What's the process? What's the best of the process they've gone through? How to deal with insurance companies, how to access government federal aid, or accessing X, Y, and Z resources that you may need. Getting the benefit of the best of what others know, that's the magic of crowdsourcing in this. And I think that's the power of it that the platform is trying to harness.
Yes, because we think about like, we know about like the Mauis and like the big, huge things, but we don't even think about like just like the individual person who lost their home, that wasn't like something that was like national news, but they may have notes that can be shared about just their individual, because to them, that was like the most cataclysmic event that they've ever gone through, right? Like, they alone can say, look, here's all the things that I can share so that you don't have to go down all the same wrong paths that I went, or here's what we did that made it easier in my life.
I think this current generation is very obsessed with social media. We like engaging one another. We want to stay relevant to each other. But what's missing is intentionality and directionality, right? So we don't have a real reason to be on the app at any given time. And it's not hedged around being socially beneficial to one another. That could be one of the things that comes out of being on any of the existing social media conduits, or to go to any of the fundraising platforms. Like, you have all these disparate spaces in which you could try to build connection, but it's not necessarily with a broader understanding and a sense of social cohesion built towards really solving for some of the things that we are facing collectively, or even regionally. And I think having a community space where we are showing up with the intentionality of wanting to serve one another would be great. That's a huge step in the direction of wanting to address something, that you're wanting to take on something together, and that we will come upon a solution together. That level of collaboration is definitely missing. And I think if it can be facilitated by being on a application that allows for people to candidly express their either lived experience or resources in ways that are beneficial towards other community members, that is definitely going to help us advance further than we have thus far, just randomly posting opinions and hoping it will find traction, right? Because that's just like trying to get a click through or a view, as opposed to actually engendering coalescing of people towards a common outcome. And I think that's what you guys are trying to get behind, which I think is definitely needed. We don't have a space for that.
I want to thank all of you for your incredible insights. And we'd love to hear from everyone out there on this model, both for this specific situation. And I'd like to extend the conversation to other disaster victims. We recently had the hurricanes in Carolina and surrounding areas from which they are still recovering. Disasters don't just go away when the next one comes along. and also your thoughts on extending this model to other humanitarian crises. Please, if you live in a community that has lived through this type of devastation, share your learnings, what's worked, what to avoid, etc. If you have revolutionary ideas or technologies, we'd love to hear from you. Share the link and encourage others to sign up and have their voices heard. Join the conversation on how to most effectively support the Los Angeles fire victims, work with us, and help to improve the community service experience.